Hi, I'm Mark Honeybone from Property Ventures, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we interview prominent members of the investment community along with other professionals in the New Zealand property market. This is a free service from Property Ventures so that you can keep current and learn from some of the best around New Zealand. To check us out, take a look at propertyventures.co.nz. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Welcome back again to our latest podcast, and as we stated last week, this will be the second of a three-type podcast that we're doing, heading up. We'll finish next week with the Ravenswood development in Christchurch. But what we've got today is Nick Hubbard from a company called Formance. Now, it's a product you use on the exterior of the outside of a home, and that they were looking into modern techniques that they could use since the February earthquake of 2011. And so what started as an investigation has ended up turning into a passionate drive for a smarter way to build, and not only around Christchurch but all around New Zealand. So this is great for the homeowner that wants a warm, comfortable home, and a lot more advantages that we'll talk about, but also potentially the investor that can have a nice warm home, great for a tenant who may live in a minor dwelling out the back of a house, or even certainly a new house when you're building. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to Nick, and I hope you enjoy the show. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss housing with you.
All good. No, looking forward to it. Hey, just before we sort of get too much into Formance, just so listeners know who are talking today, tell us a bit about Nick Hubbard and what you've been doing.
Yeah, thanks. So we have a business in the automotive industry for many, many years. I'm a toolmaker by trade, so precision and engineering was my background.
Makes sense.
We got into looking at the housing industry following the tragedies of 2011. I suppose we saw an opportunity there to take our learnings from other industry and see if we could apply them. They're really looking to advance the status quo on how building was done in New Zealand, and getting in there in the early days, asking questions and talking to people. It became pretty apparent that things hadn't moved on for 100 years, and so looking at what other countries were doing, it was pretty clear that there was opportunity there to adopt some of the technology from offshore, make it fit for the New Zealand market, compliance environment, and ultimately result in higher quality of life for potentially thousands of New Zealanders. So pretty inspiring opportunity came off that of the whole tragedy of the earthquakes, really, Mark.
Right.
That's the background and why we're so keen to be involved.
Okay, no, that sounds good. So just on the exact things at the earthquake, what went wrong, and what the learnings were. In fact, what were some of the maybe the learnings, or what should have the houses been like, and why are you adopting what you are now?
Yeah, well, there's a few things, and I'm certainly not the expert on diagnosing every failure at the earthquake, but a couple of things that really stand out for me were the collateral damage in residential housing, just simply due to the construction. It's really not designed for handling earthquakes of that nature. A lot of our house, for example, has been written off, and the opportunity there then to really provide a stronger and more resilient method. In fact, the very first Google search we did at the September 2010 earthquake event, was on earthquake-proof housing, and this is what came up. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. The other big thing is probably with so many people thinking about construction, I mean, there's never been a time where more people either are building, know someone that's building, is involved in the industry. Probably never in our lifetime has there been so many people thinking about construction. So we see it as a wonderful opportunity now, off the back of that tragedy, to move the bar forward, advance the status quo, as we say.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, so you started off and you went around trying to find a good product, and what were you really looking within a product to use? What were the factors?
Yeah, looking at obviously the earthquake resilience was their opportunity to also improve some more fundamental building issues around building science, moisture control, vapour control, that sort of thing. Back slumping is an issue for insulation in New Zealand, and having a lovely home, brand new home, but that over time deteriorates because the back slump within the wall through vapour and condensation. So being able to address all of these things, there's numerous ways of doing it, but in terms of finding something that addressed all of those things and potentially gave us the opportunity for addressing the skill shortage through prefabrication was really ticked all the boxes. So, and it was quite a surprise to us that at that stage no one was really heavily involved in producing this technology.
Right. So the prefab board you use, I mean, maybe we'll start off by explaining, or in fact, where it come from and what it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. So we talk, throw the word SIP in there, which stands for Structurally Insulated Panel, and that's a broad term for anything that's both a structural element and provides the insulation for that structure. So the mainstream structural insulated panel in the rest of the world consists of an oriented strand board, like a very coarse chipboard, OSB for short, skin, either side of an expanded polystyrene core in the format of a sandwich. So that is the mainstream structural insulated panel in the rest of the world. So that's where we're starting. And that's used in walls and in roofs. Sometimes floors where you've got a cantilever situation, side of a hill, something like that. But the real benefit really is by using these in the envelope, you create essentially a high performance envelope, which gives you the ability to then control the inside environment.
Right.
So they come in a range of different sizes, and we look at every project separately. We'll look at a project and go, let's thicken the walls up a bit so it's in a colder place, or let's optimise this, put the roof panels out to a certain distance, etc., etc. So every single project is unique, and that's really where we see the use of them in the envelope.
Okay, so actually, I've been down and I've seen getting ready to put a house together and seen what the product looks like. So you're actually saying you can the thickness of the insulation you can actually change depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah, definitely. So that where you've got the one that you came along, the little studio, which had the little 115 thick walls, which is essentially the same size as your classic 4x2 framing. So that'd be the main wall thickness.
Yep.
Then if you go south, then certainly homeowners throughout the country are often opting to go up a size to the 165, which is equivalent to the 6x2 in a wall. And in a typical size in a roof panel would be probably more like perhaps 215, which is you're right up to R 5.5 at that thickness. And we can carry on going, really no limit, but obviously a practical limit in terms of the building design with the thickness of it. And
just on that, for the warmth factor compared with the stock standard houses that are built with normal pig bats or whatever in there, have you got how much warmer, or is there any sort of the proof of the warmth factor inside a house compared with the other? And I suppose a part of that will come back to the tightness of the place also.
That's it. That's exactly. So there's two. There's the air tightness of the building, which is arguably the most important thing to consider. And Bob was talking about that last week about how the air tightness is so essential. It's essential for two reasons. One is for thermal performance. Imagine if you have a big hole in your wall, you're going to have a lot of air going in and out of your home. Yep. You're at the mercy of the outside temperature and conditions. But also, interestingly enough, acoustics. A bit like when you open the window, if it's a well-sealed the window, you're going to hear a lot of the outside noise coming in. So having an airtight envelope has got those two benefits. And then the R value really is the other factor in the thermal equation. And all the studies point to an average energy saving, or energy usage conservation of around 50%.
Right.
And certainly we're seeing, even, just talking to the homeowners that we're privileged to work with that are now living in these homes, it's phenomenal what they're achieving. I think when we get the numbers together and we put some more stats together, we're going to see it at least 50%, possibly more. I mean, you felt it when you came into the little studio, how warm it was.
Yeah, and it was a pretty cold day down there that day. So, that's superb. I mean, as listeners know, and you just alluded to, we spoke to Bob from Super Homes, last week, and that's part of what they also trying to achieve. And I believe you're just a part of the Super Homes regime now. Is that right?
Yeah, we share a similar value set, really. It's time to move on, time to advance the status quo, as I said before, and really, why haven't things changed? It's a question that the industry needs to ask itself. And if there is better technology and better ways of doing things, and with smart design, cost effective as well, why aren't we doing more of this?
Yeah.
And that's the super home mantra as well, really.
Yeah. So just with, normally it's just the exterior, the envelope, as you're saying, of the place that's done. I was in the small show home you have there that has the underneath done also. I mean, I suppose if you're building on a steep bit of land, that will be a way to do that and even get more warmth, I guess. Or would it be the similar warmth than concrete underneath, concrete foundation?
Yeah, well, I think our general advice to anyone looking at floors would be consider thermal mass. We don't advise on design exactly, but consider thermal mass is a good, sensible thing, because if you have a concrete floor and you have edge insulation, which is critical, then you have the opportunity to have a nice piece of thermal mass in there that's going to just keep the home at a steady temperature.
Yep.
So we're not, we do use the panels in a floor situation, but it's more about what's right for the site. And often that is a concrete thermal mass type floor.
Yeah, and as Bob said last time, the house warmth starts from actually the design of where it sits and faces and little bits and pieces from there, and then you get the air tightness that you've been talking about. That's all part of it. The other thing also, or one of the advantages with prefab, and I've seen videos of this, and I've seen a couple of houses go up about 6 or 7 years ago using the same philosophy. How long does it take you to put an exterior of a home up once you've got it all in the workshop?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It will depend on the size of the house, the specific location. The very first one we did, which before we talk about that, there's two ways that the panels can be supplied. So we always provide them fully cut out specific to the home. We can supply them loose for the builder to put together on site, one at a time. And that would be probably more for the first time round, or the more complicated builds. And they'll go up about the same time as regular framing. But if we add prefab into the mix, and we've got the capabilities in Auckland and Christchurch to do that, we're actually assembling the panels in a factory environment into large sections, as much as you can fit on, say, a high ab. And that means that, for example, I think it's around 300 square metre home. The one we did recently with around 100 lineal metres of perimeter wall. Well, that wall went up in a day. So it's a good size, group home style, mainstream home, and walls are standing in a day. So I guess, that brings me to that whole, the skill shortage issue in New Zealand, Mark, with particularly in Auckland, we were really struggling to get builders to fulfil their needs in housing. And you might have a team of builders who are capable of perhaps 3 or 4 homes per year. If we then empower that team with a solid prefab solution in behind them, that same team might do 6 homes a year.
Right.
So for the builder, there's high, but the great thing for the builder, but then for the industry as a whole, we increase the overall capacity and address that skill shortage.
Yes, you're getting capacity and quality also from the extra factors that some of the new homes don't have.
Oh, totally. And ultimately, we're so passionate about its quality of life because you only get one.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Just one thing we skipped actually in there was where the product actually comes from you use and why you picked that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we initially began manufacturing locally, but we soon realised that that's made it a premium for anyone outside the immediate region. So we looked to offshore. So we currently have the board manufacture, or the panel, using Canadian board. We have it pressed and cut in China, and that gives us the ability to go anywhere in the country and essentially have a factory at every port. So that means that we can cover any region, anywhere in the country, and it also gives us a fair amount of capacity too. So if there's volume projects on, like, for example, with the Ministry of Education school project we're doing at the moment in Christchurch, we're able to absorb that sort of a project into the regular residential jobs that keep flowing through.
Right, that's great. And you've had any trouble with the councils or compliance of using the boards?
No, we took that pretty seriously right from the start, Mark. We're pretty relieved when we're doing our due diligence on where the industry is at the moment. We were able to determine that the code mark scheme is a brilliant invention, in my look. It's the ability for anyone to come into the industry, select a product, follow the process, and demonstrate compliance with the New Zealand Building Code. It's a third-party audited scheme, and councils must accept a code mark certificate as part of a consent application. So we took that somewhat hard road initially, and that's meant that we've had a pretty smooth run through every consent that we've been involved with to date.
Okay.
Not everything's perfect. Occasionally you get some RFIs, but there hasn't been one refused to date. Right,
great. That's perfect. And the builders that use that are working sort of alongside you, they've obviously had no trouble using the product, and probably embrace it as for the reason you said before.
Question. Quite the other way around. It's the general sentiment from a builder is, hey, that was great. I feel like I've got pride of workmanship back in the job now. This feels really good to build with. Put us on the list if you've got any more. Love to do some more.
Yeah, nice stuff. So, Nick, whereabouts in New Zealand will you operate, or maybe more to the point, where won't you operate? Because obviously you've mentioned Auckland and Christchurch.
Yeah. Well, we can operate anywhere. I guess that's the beauty of the supply model that we've got set up. So we've done as far south as Chiana. There's a few projects pending in Southland, Nelson, Christchurch area, obviously, the coast, and then all through the North Island as well, Wellington, in Hawke's Bay, and right up as far as sort of Kaipara in that area as well. So, yeah, really no limitations at all in location.
Perfect, and you get your builders to like working with you, and they get to know the product that you mentioned before, and then it's all go. Great. Yeah. And what types of houses? Is it just all big homes? I know in the North Shore in Auckland here, there's quite an exclusive sort of home. What about investors? We have many investors listen to this show. Minor dwellings are a great thing for investors. Second incomes. Can that work pretty well?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that's one of the key reasons when looking at it originally is that it's broad applicability over many building types. Anything from the tiny home, which seems increasingly popular. People want to get into the market at somehow, and that's the first rung of the ladder is to build yourself a tiny home. So it's absolutely perfect for that with its additional bracing strength and lightweight and energy efficiency. And you can also do it yourself. It's quite processable by hand if you want to get a pile of blank panels and cut it yourself.
Yep.
And then right through to the large projects like the school I mentioned before. That's all infinitely doable. And in terms of investors and sort of the bulk or group home style, mass-produced home, it works really, really well for that with an investor mindset. over time. So you're thinking of energy usage over time, the resilience of the building, the lower maintenance over time because it just holds its performance for forever, really. And then also other things like impact resistance. So we've done a project with Housing New Zealand. I think one of the key features there was its impact resistance. So damage on internal walls, you've got a completely solid surface against which to either you paint directly or put a plasterboard on the inside. So you can punch it and kick it all you like. You might end up down at A&E, but the building's not going to be damaged. So, in fact, we've even seen, Mark, some investors going, you know what about this whole, power included with your rent scenario, and giving them confidence that that's an equation that they can start to work with in their return on investment calcs.
Yeah, no, a few investors will like that. They're going to get the better tenants and the tenants that they'll get their place rented before anyone else's also. So that's a great way. And certainly with what you're saying about the tenants, the damage control, that's quite a valid talking point with the new rules here that sort of seem to be protecting the tenants slightly better than they are the landlord at the moment. So quite important you said that, I guess. So here's the $1 million question, of course, for an investor, especially if you are looking at building a minded dwelling, what have you. And I know it comes down to a lot of factors. It's not going to be the same for all, but the cost, is a cost much more than a standard home or a standard, especially minded dwellings. Most minded dwellings are a 60 square metre rectangle. What sort of additional cost of it would they be looking at?
Yeah, well, the short answer is we back cost this a lot to see so that we can inform the homeowners, etc., and investors about this exact question. And we're seeing it somewhere on average between 1% and 5% more on the overall build. So say you're building for 500, then a build of between 505 to 525 if the only difference was the panels. But I think the cost question's got a much broader application. It really comes down, we've seen this a lot, it really comes down to fundamentally good design. And people going through the journey of that new home build experience need to get that cost equation out front early. There's no greater tragedy in my book than to see someone fall in love with a new design. There's 3D visuals, the designer's done an amazing job, goes out to the builder, back comes the price, and you're hundreds of thousands of dollars more than you can afford. That's a tragedy, and it could have easily been avoided with some good cost controls and around the design in the first place. So there's other factors, much greater factors at play in the cost equation. So that's the short answer is between 1% and 5%. Right. And for that, if you took just the R value as a comparison, you're going to increase the R value of the envelope somewhere between 60 and 90%. Right. So it's sort of a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. And one of the things with the board that I noticed when I saw your place down in Christchurch is you have still variants of what you want to do. You can jib the inside if you want to. I guess that gives even more warmth. But the board itself it looks good. We saw, I think it was Resale, wasn't it? It had quite a few different painted versions of what it can look like. So you can limit or spend more or less to what you really want the end result to be.
Yeah, and that's a really nice conversation to have with designers. It's like a new toy for them to play with. So a new canvas on which they can express their talents, and even in a more practical way. You've got a closed-in building, you've got code of compliance. Here's the paintbrush. Here's the paint. Here's the tech spec from Resale. Help yourself, and it's very forgiving as a painted surface because of its inherent anomalies in the texture of it. So a dribble here and there is not going to be seen.
Yeah, no.
The other interesting thing with that, the notion of an entire wall being a structural skin, is when it comes to picture frames or mirrors or anything that you want to hang or attach to the wall, you've got a complete wall in which to do it. So you're not having to go around and bang around looking for studs.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. It's a pain, and then you know what. No, good. So just want to carry on then. We've already touched on a lot of the benefits, I guess. Just some of the extra benefits that you see Obviously, you want to sell the, give the benefits for it. Just tell them, listeners, a few more.
Yeah, sure. So we've talked about the superior thermal performance for the lower energy bill. It's inherently capable of achieving passive house standard. Passive house standard is a German standard of energy efficiency and comfort levels. So, for example, the blower door test is a pressure test to measure how airtight the building is. The passive standard is 0.6 air changes per hour, and anything less than that is well within. So just last week we had a passive house or blower door test done on a foreman's house, and it came in at 0.49.
Right.
So just without any additional measures, it will just achieve that with a bit of care from the builder. No degradation in performance over time will be the next thing. So you're not going to get back slumping. It just lasts forever. It performs as well as, in 50 years that it did when it was built. And then with that airtight envelope, being able to separate the inside environment from the outside, you then have enormous control over the indoor air quality. So with the addition of a heat recovery ventilation unit, you will get hospital-grade air quality in a residential home. So, removing issues with allergies, drier air is cheaper heat, etc. It's just a huge health opportunity there. Then we've mentioned the pre-assembly, so the ability to build faster, the inherent strength of it, and really, if you take the efficiencies of prefabrication into the equation for in a program, so a build program over time, you can now do things in parallel as opposed to in series in your program. So if you can order the windows off our shop drawings because they're so accurate, you can do a lot of stuff in parallel. So your build program comes down, which every builder knows affects the cost.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I love the health of the family thing. It's such a big talking point around the country at the moment, and if we can have health of the family or show that for future tenants, tenants are going to pay probably $10 to $20 more a week because of that anyway. So that's another savings anyway.
Yeah, it was a really cool little story from one of our clients who built up at actually wine manager up at Huranui, North Canterbury inland.
My hometown. Yep.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Lucky you. That's a lovely spot up there, and he'd built himself actually two places, one for a rental and one for his family. And being on a tight budget, it kept things to the minimum. The 115 panels on the wall and the 165s on the roof. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you can get for the application. And we heard from his builder. He called in the other day. He said, as of it was sort of like early July, he said, they haven't turned any heating on yet. So
oh, really?
It's these little stories that spur you along. You think, wow, it really does work.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experience, it gets damn cold there in the winter. One of the coldest, almost the coldest down in the deep south. So there you go. That's good. Good story. Okay. I was going to talk about the New Zealand homeowner. Why would they want to use this? I think you've probably covered that from the benefits, unless you've got any other reasons.
No, I think over time, probably the only other thing really, Mark, would be resale value. We're seeing this in other countries where they've moved on beyond sticks and fluff, as we call it. And there's been studies done in the States by a particular university who found that a high-performance home was actually, on average, reselling for 8% more than something built to the minimum code standard. So now that's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's a trend I think we're going to see play out over time. It's much like in Christchurch, you have raft foundations, and real estate agents, you know yourself, this home here has got a raft foundation. You protected your entire investment, so that becomes a question that is now talked about in the sales process. Mm. I think it's just a matter of time before the energy performance and the way this home is constructed and by whom becomes part of the actual value of your asset.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's good. And from investments, mathematics, straight away I'm going, 1 to 5% extra for the panels itself, which is one small part of the home in the end, but the most important part, 8% at the end of it. The worst the value is going to be, you're onto a win straight away. So yeah, that's good. So before we just wrap up, any other final sort of comments? In fact, that's what I was going to say. You've one of your partners, I think, involved with this, as some listeners would have seen on TV a couple of years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, you're referring to the
block, that's it, isn't it? The block, trying to think
block winners from 2012.
Yeah, the winners from 2012. Yeah, I don't remember. I actually didn't watch it, I don't think.
Yeah, so he tracked us down. Gosh, must be nearly 3 years ago now, when he was doing his research. He wanted to build to a better standard. He wanted to really stand out for what was able to be, produced. He wanted to step very lightly on the land. That was been in Kylie up in Castor Bay.
Right.
So that was been a really great project for everyone, really, just to follow them through the journey, understand the reasons why they did what they did. So he's now living in a stunning home up there and reaping the benefits. The other one that's coming up for the listeners to look out for is one of the homes up in the Auckland region will be on the Grand Designs program.
Right, yeah.
So that's going to be pretty interesting. I won't steal the thunder exactly, but it is a very interesting build, and it will certainly help people understand the process and to follow it along.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be great for you guys too, having that on national telly with people seeing a pretty nice home up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. Anything else before we sort of wrap up? I mean, one of the reasons you're on this podcast, is similar to last week with Bob, is we're just here. We're an agent. We're just providing different opportunities to different people that are interested in what we like. We're selling sections down in this Ravenswood area down in Christchurch, and that's how we actually come to meet. Just by providing something different. If you wanted to live there for yourself or build a rental, why not do it better than the rest? And as you said, it'll be worth 8% or potentially more than that, more than any other home in the area. So that's sort of why we've got you here. And yeah, anything else you'd like to add before we finish? And how do we, if someone is interested, how do they get hold of you?
Yeah, that's a good, very good question. So free call number 0800 000 527 would be a great way. The website's www.formance.co.nz. Live chat on there. We're happy to help. Essentially, our role is to listen and understand what you're looking to achieve and help you if you don't already have a team of designers and builders to work with. We've got a lot of growing number of people around the country who have done this and are keen to help other people into a high-performance home. So we'll be, that's our initial role. And then during the build process, we will help make sure, or the design process initially, will help make sure the home is optimised well for the panels, making the best efficient use of them, and support the builders, etc. If it's the first time for the builder, we're here to help with the site, etc. But no, thanks. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to join you and share what's happening and get involved with what you're doing, Mark. I think it's great what you're doing.
Oh, that's great, and thanks so much for that. And if any investors here and listening in Christchurch or Auckland, really, I guess we can and want to look at a new way of doing a minor dwelling, come and see us. I'll tell you about what I know. Then then Nick will look after you from there. So, okay, hey, thanks very much for your time today, and have a great day.
Awesome. Cheers, Mark. Thanks for that.
Okay, we'd like to thank Nick for his time today, and just a bit of a promotion again for our two events coming up. Nick's going to be talking there next Tuesday after this comes on in Auckland, and in Christchurch on the 18th of October. So if you're unsure of those dates, give us a call here at the office, 0800 NZ Property, and have a chat to us about it, or go to the propertyventures.co.nz, and it's under blogs. You can go there and register. Okay, have a great week, and we'll be back next week talking to Ravenswood. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure you join us on our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/propertyventuresnz, and we'd really appreciate it if you could jump on iTunes and Stitcher and give us a rating and reviews. That will help us with other people finding us about the podcast. Thanks, have a great day.